This week on the 21st Century Wire, we're looking into Britain's emerging police state. I'm Patrick Henningsen, and this is the 21st Century Wire.
Information is power. Reconfiguring your reality. This is the new battleground. 21st Century Wire.
We're here with our guest this week, Mr. Ben Fellows, who's somewhat of an expert in all things police state and security state. So we have a few clips we're going to look at this evening, and I just wanted to get your reaction, Ben. There's some absolutely shocking things that have been going on, not just this year, but in previous years in this country. And a lot of people, a lot of pundits, a lot of writers, cultural commentators, you name it, are all really saying that the UK is leading the world in the so-called police state. So all the technologies, all the social engineering happens here to quite a hardcore degree before it disseminates out to the rest of the world. And I'm talking about the high-tech surveillance state. I'm talking about the privatization of the police services and the corporate state, and this new hybrid, this new public-private chimera that's emerged in recent years, not just under the Blair government, but I think long before that, to get to the point where we are today. But tell us a little bit about your experience with some of these subjects recently.
Well, as you know, Patrick, I was the 2012 whistleblower for the London Olympics, and the way that that worked out was that I went undercover into G4S training for the run-up to the Olympic Games to be part of it. I discovered so many shocking things about how security works and run in this country. Because of that, I had to come out and tell my story early under the name Lee Hazeldine, which I think is what most people kind of knew me as straight away. And then I came out again, I think on the Lou Collins show here in this country and the Alex Jones show in America as Ben Fellows. You know, if you're looking at sort of the state of security in this country, what we have to look at is East Germany and say like the Stasi. However, with the Stasi, what you had was neighbour sort of spying on neighbour.
Snitch culture.
That's right, yeah. Here it's a lot worse already because we have all the cameras, we've now got the drones that were only supposed to be here for the Olympics, but are staying afterwards, as I said they would, because that's the plan they had all along.
All manner of electronic surveillance.
This is it.
Internet, mobile phone, GPS tracking, and so forth.
And now smart meters, which of course when everything in your household is electric, they will be able to actually ration electricity to you. And so they can control how much electricity you have, so therefore, whether you're watching television at peak times or not, if you've gone over your rationing, they could, in theory, cut that off. So it's very intrusive already. So we're way past East Germany.
Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of people look at the United States as being the model. Of course, we see a lot on YouTube and the alternative media about the United States being the premier police state emerging in the world. But you know, even in the US, they don't have the level of digital penetration that we have in this country. Not just smart meters, but we're talking about, you have the digital television changeover. We have high penetration of cell phone users in this country, have done for much longer than any other country in the world. And also we have more CCTV cameras in London than anywhere else in the world. So as far as digital surveillance goes, this country is leading the world.
Oh, that's great. And don't forget Echelon as well, which is based up in Yorkshire and is the listening post for really the Western Hemisphere for all digital communications. And so everything from emails, your phones, everything digital flies through the air, goes through to Echelon, and they, if you're a person of interest to them, can then look at everything about you. One good analyst from the NSA said it was a bit like doing things in 3D when you came to surveillance now. And he sort of said, well, look, what we do is we draw a string horizontally. So you'd have your phone, you would have your bank accounts, you would have, say, your Facebook or other social media accounts, And once they sort of draw a theoretical string through that, they, in theory, can look through everything. So all they need is, say, your telephone number, and that would open it out then to your bank account and your social media and everything about you, because it's all connected on this one theoretical piece of mathematical code they call this string.
So you can get a composite of somebody within a second.
Very quickly, instantaneously, whereas, 50 years ago, you would be hunting for files for weeks in various databases and what have you. So, and asking other authorities to send you stuff. This is instantaneous surveillance of anybody in the planet. That's where they're going to. And here and in America, they're pretty much already there, I think.
We're going to look at a few clips now. I've been covering some of these stories for quite a few years. Most recently from, let's say, about 2003, during the Iraq war protests in central London. But I took some footage of the G20, and the G20 in London in 2009 was kind of, for me, a watershed point in really seeing the shape of this emerging police state. We're talking about the new uniforms, the sheer numbers of police, and obviously the kettling and some of these new techniques. So we're going to kind of have a look at these, and I want to just tell me what your thoughts on some of these.
In the face. Any reason for that?
I was waiting for them to wait for a legal observer is what I was doing.
They just grabbed someone.
In this case, the police closed ranks immediately, and quite a few people crowded around to help this woman, and the police just charged at the crowd after a while just to clear them out of the area because they realized what they had done. But any responsibility, any accountability here, that's a very difficult one in the new police state.
Yeah, and they do that on purpose. There is a rationale behind all this. Being extremely violent to protesters will make them not want to protest again. Tell their friends, I got hit, blah blah blah. So there is a policy running through the police that when they're at these protests, to be overzealous, as it were. To hit harder. If you need to hit someone with your baton, then do it hard. Don't sort of threaten, kind of thing. So the police are becoming more aggressive, and as we predicted years ago, I think you did, I did certainly, and a number of other commentators have, that the police will just get more and more aggressive. They are getting more aggressive, and here we are. This is the other side of the surveillance style now. This is the man on the street. This is how this police state's going to be day to day. And even, traffic wardens are being given PACE powers, which is police powers, in the event of a national emergency, or maybe a national emergency which is in the future of some kind. They will then form the police.
What's the new term for a traffic warden? Is it a civil enforcement officer?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Very Orwellian.
Yeah. And we've got neighbourhood enforcement officers as well, which are these kind of wardens that just patrol, just wander around. They're not police, they're not PCSOs. They are, we've got them here in Greenwich, and they walk around the park. They're professional witnesses, supposedly. They haven't been given truncheons or handcuffs, but I wonder whether that's in the making.
Well, that's one of the telltale signs of a society that's going off the edge into this abyss. Is the myriad, the dozens of agencies, titles, job titles, departments. I think in Nazi Germany they had something like 50 government agencies, sub-agencies, and they had intelligence agencies monitoring the intelligence agencies. Then they had the neighborhood village groups and all these different levels of the Nazi security apparatus that went right down to the schools, to the kids.
Yeah.
So that's a real telltale sign. I think we're seeing this mushrooming of all these different organizations. And we'll get to that in a bit later, which is the private public organizations, arm's length organizations, as they're called, so many of those. So, we really are moving in that direction. I saw that movie, The Lives of Others, last year, and it really hit home. This was East Germany, before the Iron Curtain came down, so to speak. but really harrowing in the way that there's so much restriction and everybody's watching each other, and you could win points with the party if you grassed your neighbor or something like that.
And you know, excessive sentences for doing nothing. You know, if you're an artist, they worked out that artists would suffer the worst if they were put in prison without any explanation, kept there for 10 years and then just released. They wouldn't be able to have creativity. Artists really suffer. So what did the Stasi do? They go pick artists off the street, say you've been hanging out with some sympathisers or whatever, and they put you in jail for 10 years, and that would be you gone for that period of time. And so when you come out, you're utterly devastated, you're crushed, you'll never say anything against the regime again. You know, and everyone who knows you knows that's what's happened to you, so therefore they don't say anything against the regime lest it happens to them. So this is kind of real sort of police state stuff coming in, you know.
Well, speaking of arm's length organizations, I'm going to show you a clip. This is out of the borough of Kensington and Chelsea. And this is the Tenants Management Organization, known as the TMO. Used to be called the Tenant Management Organization, implying that the tenants were managing themselves. Obviously, they changed the name recently to let them know that they are being managed. Now, this is one gentleman who had a heart condition. He was an electrician. He got electrocuted and ended up in the hospital with a heart attack. While he was in the hospital, he missed his court date. So they prosecuted him in absentia and evicted him from his flat. I'm just going to show you the footage. Take a look.
Have you got an order for me?
I've just told you I have, sir. Now I've got...
Can you show it to me, please, through the letterbox?
No, I'm not putting anything through a letterbox, sir.
I'm afraid I can't help you there.
Right, what we're going to do, I'm going to inform you now, we're going to force entry.
No, you cannot force entry. You don't have my consent to do that. You don't have authority or consent to do that.
No, don't open it.
Don't open it, for goodness sake.
Oh! Hey, you just locked me!
Oh my God!
Right,
I've got you all on camera.
that's fine.
No, that's not fine, you just hurt him.
I found it absolutely shocking to see a man in his own house, to see the door battered open to the extent it then injures him and forces him to the ground. And I have watched the most brutal behaviour by people who I'm not quite sure who they are. They're not police, they're not empowered in any way, but their actions are clearly brutal, aggressive, and this is the sort of behaviour I would expect to see from government officials in the Eastern Bloc or the Soviet Union or probably communist China.
And what's your reaction to that?
Well, firstly, it's disgusting. What I didn't hear from the conversation they had was, stand back, I'm going to kick the door in. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if you heard it, I couldn't hear that. So he wasn't even warned, which is why he was right next to the door. And he was very worried and, you know, he was panicking slightly, so he didn't know whether to open his door. So the people inside would say, no, 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 just close it. And in that confusion, that's when it happened. And so really, that's the police being, you know, over-excessive. And this is what we're seeing more and more. And when she came through the door, the police officers said, no, it's okay. What, to us? You know,
As four of them barged into the flat, they steamrolled him.
That's right. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. They're not there for his welfare. They're there to do their one thing, and no matter what they're going to do, they're going to do it, whether that means kicking down your door and injuring you.
So they're not there to serve and protect, is really what
no, and this isn't policing by consent either. You know, he very clearly said, I'm not going to allow you to do this, right? And he's got the right to protect his home. Even from the police, you have that right. But not anymore, and those rights are being eroded daily.
Well, I'm going to show you the follow-up to that story. This is just a few minutes later. Now, he wanted to go back inside his flat, get his heart medication, but of course, police weren't having it. Imagine having all your life's possessions, valuables. If he was a writer, had all his written documents inside, no access to any of his stuff. A metal door was put up within an hour, I think. But watch what happens when he tries to go back in.
They pushed me down on the floor, two of them. Two of them grabbed me while I was moving away, and I wasn't expecting it, and that's why I fell down. They just they were keeping me away from re-entering the premises. Yes, that's what they were doing. That was their service.
I think the key thing about this is that this action is being taken. It's unilateral action. These men don't want to discuss, they don't want to reason, they don't want to hear arguments as to why they shouldn't do what they're doing. And the gentleman's not even allowed back in his house. What we are watching is council housing in particular being stripped away from people and replaced by housing associations. And then we are seeing that across the country more and more rules and restrictions are being placed on tenants by those housing associations, and effectively the housing associations are now at the point of making up law and being able to then bring in thugs. They may be trained thugs, but they're still thugs, in order to enforce what rules and regulations they think are acceptable. This is a very, very dangerous state for the country to be getting into. And of course, it doesn't matter if we look at the Labour Party or we look at David Cameron and the Tory Party, we are seeing the same drive for this common agenda, this common purpose, which means effectively that ordinary people are being put at the bottom of a pile to be treated by the public sector and corporations as those two bodies choose.
Now you can imagine, after that, you've just had your head smashed with a door with 4 police on the other side of it, no apology, and now you want to go back in and get your heart medication, 2 officers throwing you to the ground. This is pretty shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's insane. And in actual fact, obviously you've got, you know, an assault charge against those officers. But it's the way they did it. They just, you know, they were what, over 6 foot tall, both of them were. And the way they just flippantly grabbed him and threw him down. And then actually didn't even look to see if he was okay. Didn't care for that man's welfare whatsoever. You know, and is this really where we've come to in this country? And I'm afraid it is. And the police aren't doing themselves any favours. You know, they're about to be privatised. All those people will be out of jobs, even if they think they're not going to be. They will be eventually. This will have a private police force, which means more of this and worse.